Hello, everyone. My name is Helal Vachani, and I'm a medical oncologist at VCU. I'm here today to talk to you all about breast cancer and how we can take simple measures to mitigate its risk. And this is perfectly in time for our Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is October. And with this, I would like to share my slides so I can talk to you about the data I wanted to discuss. So my topic is impact of lifestyle choices on breast cancer risk. And this is relevant to our breast cancer survivors, but also to anybody who is worried about their risk of breast cancer because of being affiliated with somebody with breast cancer and want to take lifestyle measures that will help reduce this risk. And when we follow with our patients during and after breast cancer, we talk about a lot of things, including surveillance for their cancer recurrence, looking at how compliant they are with their medications, evaluating them from side effects of their cancer therapy, and of course, reminding them to have annual mammograms, which hopefully all of you are also keeping a tab on. But an important discussion that happens during this time is also related to lifestyle changes. And that is what I would like to focus on today, is how we can make simple changes to our day-to-day life and achieve beneficial results in terms of breast cancer risk reduction. Many a times during our clinic visits, our patients ask us about several questions related to this topic, including how can I best take care of myself? What foods should I prefer to eat? Should I cut back on sugar intake? Should I avoid soy products? Can I drink alcohol? And is there a safe limit of how much alcohol is okay for me? How about exercising without harming my body? And whether vitamins or immunity boosters will be helpful? And ultimately, how can I prevent this cancer from coming back? And a lot of the things that I would like to discuss today are recommendations that we discuss with our patients. And I want you to not just get my opinion on how we can reduce cancer risk. A lot of times doctors are good at telling people generic advice like eat healthy, sleep well, drink your fluids, exercise. But I don't want you to just take my word for it. I want to convince you that there is evidence that suggests that certain interventions and measures that you can take on a day-to-day basis can actually help reduce your breast cancer risk. So let's dive in. American Institute of Cancer Research, AICR for short, has looked at a lot of these studies on diet and lifestyle choices in several different cancers and have made 10 recommendations that have consistently shown improvement in cancer prevention outcomes. And when 3 of these 10 recommendations were applied to a group of more than 30,000 women, and these were postmenopausal women without cancer history, they followed 3 simple recommendations: limiting alcohol intake, eating mostly plant food diet, and maintaining normal body weight. And when all these 3 recommendations were met, their breast cancer risk reduction was almost by 60%. Now, this is a huge impact factor. For all the things we do to reduce our risk with treatments like chemotherapy and radiation therapy, this is very simple measures that can not only help with breast cancer risk mitigation, but also in general life to reduce other risk factors such as cardiovascular risk and just make you feel healthy and feel better. Alcohol is another question that comes up. Evidence has shown that there is a dose-response relationship with alcohol, meaning the higher amount of alcohol or higher content of alcohol in your drink, the higher the risk of breast cancer associated with it. When my patients hear this, they ask a lot of times about drinking responsibly and whether light drinking is allowed. And to that, there was a trial that looked at light drinkers, which is less than 1 drink per day. which still showed a statistically significant increase in breast cancer risk, which translated to about 5,000 breast cancer deaths attributable to alcohol per year. So, and the toxic breakdown of alcohol produces a substance called acetaldehyde, and this is the culprit that puts people at risk for breast cancer. And this actually forms in the mouth as soon as you take a sip of alcohol. So really, the correct answer on the test as well as in real life is going to be avoiding alcohol at all cost. One would argue that red wine might be a little different because red wine is made from red or purple grapes, which have a compound that suppresses an enzyme called estrogen synthetase, therefore reducing the amount of estrogen in patients, which can sometimes fuel breast cancer. And so therefore, red wine may be consumed responsibly. However, overall, I generally recommend patients to stay away from alcohol if they want to reduce their breast cancer risk. Another substance is melatonin. So melatonin is something that our bodies make from a gland called pineal gland. And the way it works is that our bodies are attuned to a circadian rhythm, which means we wake up in the morning, during the day, when the sun is out, when the light is there, we have the energy to do our work. And then when the sun sets and it is evening, nighttime, the melatonin starts getting secreted, which promotes sleep, but also is known to have some cancer suppressing properties. So to evaluate this hypothesis, researchers at Brigham and Women's Hospital studied blind women with the concept that since blind women cannot perceive light, they will probably have higher levels of melatonin. And when they compared blind women with sighted women, they saw that blind women had half the odds of developing breast cancer compared to women with sight, suggesting that melatonin does indeed play a role in patients' breast cancer risk. Further evaluating this, there was a meta-analysis of 28 studies. So different studies looking at these questions were compiled together. And what it showed is that disruption of this circadian rhythm that we were talking about, where your body cells get confused about day and night, because at nighttime also we have excessive exposure of light, whether it is through our gadgets or like computers, phones, television, and that can also be associated with an increased risk for breast cancer. So maintaining your circadian rhythm, putting those gadgets that emit light or even night light that sometimes people have in their bedrooms would be something that would disrupt circadian rhythm and arguably could increase risk for breast cancer. So this begs the question, is there anything you can do to increase your melatonin levels? Well, an easy answer would be just take supplements and reduce your risk of breast cancer. Well, at least none of the studies have shown that supplemental melatonin can mitigate cancer risk, but one of the studies done in Japan showed that there was a correlation between higher vegetable intake and higher melatonin secretion in your urine. So certainly including more veggies in your diet and pulling the curtain on those lights at night will help increase your melatonin levels and reduce your breast cancer risk. How about exercise? We are very good, doctors are very good at recommending exercise for just about any problem that the patient comes up with. But for breast cancer, studies have shown that rigorous exercise, which is 5 hours per week, so where you're really sweating and giving a push to your body, has shown that in high-risk women, their female hormone levels came down by about 20%. So this can particularly be relevant for those whose breast cancers are triggered by female hormone levels. And how about those of us who are not rigorous exercisers? I'm sure we are plenty of those. And that was looked at with a study where moderate walking for about an hour per day was evaluated, and it showed that moderate walking can reduce patients' breast cancer risk by about 14%. So all those people who love to walk, just make sure that you're doing it at a moderate pace, as leisurely walking does not seem to help, and make sure that you time yourselves for 1 hour per day if possible. To further stress this point, I want to discuss the study that was done in 1,500 women with breast cancer. So folks who are breast cancer survivors were taken, and they had at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day and walked about 30 minutes, 6 days a week. And this led to 50% reduction in their mortality. So that is a huge benefit. If we can show mortality reduction with simple measures like eating fruits and vegetables and walking for 30 minutes every day, that's a huge impact, I feel. Talking about meat consumptions for our patients who are meat lovers, how meat is cooked is very essential, because whenever meat is exposed to high temperatures, temperatures greater than 212 degrees Fahrenheit, can lead to production of substances called heterocyclic amines, or HCA for short. These chemicals have shown to initiate and propagate cancer cells. And studies have shown that people who consume grilled, smoked, barbecued meats have a 47% higher odds of having breast cancer compared to those who are not meat eaters. This was further illustrated in a study where women who ate well-done bacon or steak were compared to those who consumed rare or medium meat, and showed that the folks who ate well-done meats had 5 times higher odds of getting breast cancer, suggesting that reducing the temperatures at which meat is cooked, or adopting a more plant-based diet might be helpful in reducing the risk. Now, some people may just say, well, I love my meat, and how can we reduce my risk of getting breast cancer even with meat consumption? So to those ladies, I would say preventing breast cancer by any means necessary is what we need to do. And this is not just any greens. This is cruciferous vegetables, which include veggies like cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, kale, etc. And this was highlighted in a study where non-smokers, because smoking can also induce heterocyclic amine production in your body. So they did a study in non-smokers who were fed pan-fried meat for about a couple of weeks, and then 2 to 3 cups of broccoli was added to their diet. And then after a couple of weeks, broccoli was taken away and they were continued to fed pan-fried diet. And the suggestion here was that cruciferous vegetables can help boost the ability of people's livers to detoxify certain toxic substances. And so when they studied the HCA levels, heterocyclic amine levels, in patients who were eating pan-fried meat, there was definite reduction in their HCA levels when broccoli was added. And to everyone's surprise, even when broccoli was discontinued, patients' HCA levels remained low, suggesting that there is an ongoing protection from consuming your vegetables. So all those meat lovers who have an upcoming barbecue, perhaps they can protect themselves by consuming cruciferous vegetables like broccoli ahead of time. This was further illustrated in a prospective study. So prospective study is a trial or a study where people are followed in time and their habits are noted, and then conclusions are made at the end of that time. So this was a study of 50,000 African-American women who were followed for a period of 12 years. That is pretty long. And what it showed is that those who had at least 2 servings of vegetables per day had a decreased risk of hormone receptor negative breast cancer. So this is a particular kind of breast cancer that is typically considered aggressive. And if women consume vegetables, particularly cruciferous vegetables, they were able to reduce their risk for this kind of cancer. So certainly eating your greens has a long impact factor. Other studies have looked at stem cells. So what are stem cells? Stem cells are parent cells that give rise to other cells that have more specialized functions. And breast tissue also seems to have stem cells, which is how they can recruit more breast cells when during pregnancy to make more milk ducts and such. So these stem cells, if they have cancerous changes, it is very difficult to eradicate those from stem cells. And this is one of the reasons why patients can have recurrences of their cancer, because their stem cell had the cancer changes and they were not eradicated completely. So that's where broccoli comes in. Sulforaphane is a compound that is derived from broccoli or broccoli sprouts. And at least in the lab, the sulforaphane has shown to suppress breast cancer stem cells. So theoretically speaking, broccoli can help maintain remission for patients if their stem cells can remain suppressed. And I'm saying theoretically because this was lab testing, but the recommendation was to eat a quarter cup of broccoli sprout per day. Sprouts have 15 to 30 times more sulforaphane than regular broccoli. But the question is, does this sulforaphane that is coming to us from broccoli or broccoli sprouts even make it to the breast tissue? To illustrate this, people did a study in women who were undergoing breast reduction surgery. So these were women who did not have breast cancer, but were going for breast reduction surgery. And they were given a cup of broccoli sprout juice just 1 hour before surgery. After surgery, their surgical specimen was evaluated and it showed that there was presence of sulforaphane, suggesting that whatever you're ingesting is actually making it to the breast tissue where we want to implement the change. So certainly something to keep in mind for those patients who are looking at maintaining long-term remission. Does fiber really help, and how much fiber is good enough? So soluble fiber, which predominantly comes from plant-based diet, your fruits such as oranges, apples, vegetables such as carrots, cucumber, celery, flax seeds, nuts, oats, lentils, whole foods, whole grains are the ones where you get soluble fiber from. And we are not talking supplemental fiber from pills, we're talking fiber from food products. This was evaluated in a case control study of more than 500 women. So there were women who had breast cancer and there were women who did not have breast cancer. And when we compared their fiber intake, there was a suggestion that women who had a high fiber intake had 85% lower odds of having a more aggressive form of breast cancer, which is hormone receptor negative breast cancer. Now, one could argue that when you ask women about their food habits, there could be a recall bias where their memory didn't serve them right, and there could be some erroneous findings that could generate with such a study. So prospective trials are done where we follow patients a long time and see what their diet intake is and see how it correlates to their risk of cancer. So such prospective trials were looked at, and it suggested that there was a 14% decrease in risk of breast cancer for every 20 gram of fiber intake. Just to give you a perspective, 1 cup of beans has about 6 grams of fiber. So the recommendation is about 25 to 30 grams per day. And an average American diet barely has 15 grams of fiber. So to increase your fiber content, it is important to consider a plant-based diet or incorporate more plants and whole grains in your diet. Now, we've all heard that an apple a day keeps the doctor away, but does an apple a day keep the oncologist away? This was the title of a paper that was a case control study of more than 2,500 people, where they took patients people who had an apple a day and compared it to people who had less than 1 apple per day. And what they saw was that daily apple eaters had about 18% lower odds of developing breast cancer. This study also looked at other cancer risks and suggested that apple eaters had a lower risk of ovarian, colon, and laryngeal cancer as well. So certainly apples are beneficial, but those of us who like to peel their apples before consuming, let me put in a word of caution that Apples are helpful because of the antioxidant properties, which is predominantly concentrated in the peels. So please eat your apples with the peels, and that makes it important to eat organic apples. That way they're not treated and there are not a lot of fertilizers on the peels. But the peel extract has shown to inhibit cancer cells when studied in a laboratory. It sounds like apples have the ability to reactivate a tumor suppressor gene called MASPIN. So tumor suppressor, as the name suggests, is a gene that helps in suppressing cancer activity. And this can sometimes be turned off by breast cancer activity, and apples supposedly can turn this gene back on. So keep them apples going. Flax seeds is another intervention which is simple and has profound effect. So flax seeds have certain phytoestrogens called lignans. Now, when people hear phytoestrogens, they automatically assume this must have estrogenic type effect and therefore not good for breast cancer survivors. Actually, the opposite is true. Phytoestrogens help dampen the effects of estrogen that is made by your own body. And flaxseed has about 100 times more lignans or phytoestrogens than other foods. National Cancer Institute did a study in 45 women who had high risk for breast cancer. So they had certain changes within their breast that put them at high risk for developing breast cancer in the future. So these women were given 2 teaspoons of ground flaxseed daily for about a year. And what it showed that their proliferation markers, so there's a way of looking at how quickly these pre-cancer-like changes are proliferating. It showed an 80% reduction in this proliferation marker. And patients who had precancerous changes at the get-go had fewer of these changes after having consumed flax seeds for about a year, suggesting beneficial effects of flax seeds for these women. How about its effect in breast cancer patients? There was a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial. So this is the kind of trial that is the best study design. And this was undertaken in breast cancer patients who were scheduled for surgery. So a few weeks down the road, these cancer patients were supposed to have surgery. And they were fed either a plain muffin, half of the group had plain muffin, and half of the group had muffins enriched with flaxseed, and they were fed this daily for about 5 weeks. And what was seen that flaxseed group had a lower Ki-67. Again, Ki-67 is a proliferation marker, and CERB-B2, which is a marker of cancer aggressiveness. So basically, we are toning the behavior of the cancer down with help of flax seeds. So breast cancer survivors also had a better chance of surviving longer if they had higher levels of lignans in their diet and blood. So flax seeds can be friends for a lot of our patients and can have profound impact on their cancer risk. I wanted to talk about soy because this question comes up pretty often, and patients believe that eating soy can raise their breast cancer risk. This is the American Institute of Cancer Research's statement that this is in fact a myth, when the fact is actually that soy products are safe for women and can provide fiber and can act as a cancer fighter. So again, soy also contains a phytoestrogen called isoflavones, and these are protective against breast cancer risk. So there were 5 studies that looked at more than 10,000 patients with breast cancer and evaluated their soy intake. And what it showed is that survivors who had a higher soy consumption had an increased survival and reduced recurrence. This was also duplicated in a prospective evaluation of soy intake in breast cancer survivors that looked at more than 9,000 US and Chinese women who were followed for about 7 years. And it showed that consumption of about 10 milligrams of isoflavones per day led to an decreased risk of breast cancer mortality and decreased risk of recurrence. And just to keep your perspective about what 10 milligrams of isoflavones would be, is 1 cup of soy milk would be equivalent. So soy is not harmful. If anything, it does have beneficial effect in our patients with breast cancer. I wanted to make people aware that breast cancer therapy is a multidisciplinary approach, and we have a lot of support from our psychotherapists, from our nutritionists, from physical therapists, occupational therapists, social workers, from our support groups that can help people through their journey and then can help them stay on course to adopt these healthy lifestyle incorporate in their life, so that you can have long-lasting benefits that you can continue to reap year after year. And this is my last slide. I wanted to highlight that we have an integrative health program at Massey Cancer Center that is looking at the patient's needs as a whole and providing that holistic approach. And these are some of the things that we highlight. There is a monthly walking event where people can mingle with other cancer survivors and other cancer care providers who can talk about various different questions. There is a diet and nutrition blog. There are health webinars and presentations such as this one, where we talk about a variety of different health topics to keep you updated. There is our resource library. So there is a integrative health webpage that I would highly encourage everybody to visit, so that you can have an update on a calendar for that month, so you know what the upcoming events are. There is yoga, there is support group meetings. There are a lot of resources that are out there that we want our patients to use and lead very healthy lives before and after cancer care. With that, I would like to end my talk here. And I hope that if there are any questions that come up after review of this recording, please feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to answer those for you. Thank you for your attention.